All right, so I wanted to make this video before I parted with this machine. Uh, in my last video, I disassembled it. I mean, not to its entirety, but simply enough to install the smart card reader. And even prior to purchasing this Lenovo ThinkPad T14 Gen 2, one of the things that I wanted was a business class laptop. At the time, I'd already owned a Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Carbon 6th generation. So I was looking for something a little different. And I was hoping to get the same experience from this particular device that I did get with that X1 Carbon. Now, I'm aware that the X series is their top of the line business class laptop, and the T series still is it's a good machine. They are a good line of products, but there definitely are some situations where things are cut. Now, as I mentioned before, the one thing that I wanted once I had the machine, I wasn't even thinking about it when I bought it, but once I had it and I saw that it had the capability, I did want to install that smart card reader, and it happened without a hitch. There were no issues when installing it, and I'm very, very happy that I was able to do so. I've been working from home a little more lately, and the ability to plug my smart card in without having to use a USB smart card reader is nice. Sometimes I need to walk around the house while I'm doing stuff, and it's easy to keep that in the machine as opposed to having to have that USB smart card reader just kind of hang from the machine. So that brings me to the point of this video and why I feel like it's time for me to let this one go. I will point out a few things about the machine, a few things that I thoroughly enjoy, a few things that I'm a little skeptical about. Now, one of the things that I was hoping to accomplish, as I mentioned before, was having the same overall typing experience with this machine as I did with my X1 Carbon 6th generation. And even though I want to like it, it's just not the same. Something about these keys, and it's hard to explain, but something about these keys just make it so that I'm not as quick as I am on the X1 Carbon, and I'm just not enjoying the experience. It might be the keys are ever so slightly smaller. I've tried to measure them, and they look to be about the same, but I don't have any precise measuring tools. Even the tactility of the keys is a little different as well. So getting rid of the laptop as a result of me not liking the typing experience is one thing that I'm not enjoying too much. So I'm going to close this. And the other thing that I wanted at the time when I bought it, which now I'm thinking, why would I need something like that, is the fact that it had an Ethernet port. For some reason, I said, hey, this Ethernet port is going to come in handy. And it has. I have had to, or have chosen to sit right next to my router to do some work. And in doing so, instead of using Wi-Fi, I was able to plug directly into the machine. Now, two problems with that. First, I believe this laptop has a Wi-Fi 6E wireless card inside of it, if not just regular Wi-Fi 6. But either way, those data throughput speeds are more than enough for anything that I was doing. So desiring an actual Ethernet port on my laptop in 2022 just isn't a requirement. And second issue with that is the fact that I could have just bought one of these. So this is a USB-C to Ethernet dongle, and kind of with the same mindset of the smart card, I didn't really want to have something just hanging off the machine. But in comparison to the cost of a whole laptop, I believe I spent maybe $10 to $15 on this. I could have easily just plugged this into my X1 Carbon 6th generation. So that's that. Anything else with this machine? No, I honestly think those were the two things. Everything, I guess, just happened to be on this one side. And in fact, no, that is not true. There is one more thing that I noticed. Let me go ahead and see if I can log back into this guy. All right. Now, you're not going to be able to pick it up on camera. and even sometimes I question if there's any validity in what I'm saying, but the screen on the X1 Carbon 6th generation is really, really good. That's the best way of putting it. It is really, really good. And I know prior to owning this machine, I had a T14S Gen 1, and it was abundantly clear that the panel on that screen was not as good as the X1 Carbons. So here, I think the panel is okay. I'd really have to start nitpicking to say that, oh, I can notice that colors aren't represented as accurately as they could be. But overall, like I'm thoroughly impressed with that X1 Carbon. Now, I guess this is more of a not even an informational video because there are people who have done way better reviews of this machine. I'm not even really reviewing it. I don't even know if I've told you what's in it. It's a Ryzen 5 5560U, I believe. It came with 16 gigs of RAM, 8 soldered, 8 in the form of a SODIMM. I did buy it secondhand, so when the listing said it was 16 gigs, I assumed that there was 16 gigs soldered and a free SODIMM slot. But no, I bought a 16 gig DIMM hoping to place that into the slot to have 32 gigs worth of RAM. But unfortunately, the previous owner did not configure it a way that I thought would have made more sense. But hey, it is what it is. Now, here is something that I guess I randomly was having conversations with two of my friends. I definitely should have written the script or something for this, but it's about the Ethernet port. It's about the SD card slot. So two of my friends, same day, two separate conversations, both of them wanted one thing. One, they both wanted CD players. So one had just recently purchased Beyonce's album. And of course, in 2022, everybody's saying, oh, you should just stream it. I'm going to assume it's available on streaming services. I honestly don't know. I haven't looked, but I'm quite confident there's a way to stream her album. But she, on the other hand, went out and bought Beyonce's CD. And I said, well, how are you going to listen to it? And she was like, well, I don't know. And of course, I've made the suggestions of, well, if you have a CD player in any of the vehicles that you or your family owns or a friend owns, yeah, you could sit out in a car all day. I even let her know that you can, she has a Mac, but she can still buy, Best Buy still sells their Apple Super Drive, I think is what it's called. I was there the other day and I took a picture of it. So yeah, Best Buy still sells it for $75. So, and obviously there are cheaper options, but some people are really fixed in on their brand. So if she has a MacBook, hey, go buy the Apple $65 disk drive that's been around for probably 2 decades now. But, it is what it is. And for her, if a CD drive is that important, then she should go get one. And what it would be is, instead of an internal one, it would definitely be one that hangs from something that she's using, or it will be one in a car, or I even asked if she had a Blu-ray player or DVD player, and I'm pretty sure she said no. So the options are there for her to use it. She just has to go out and buy one. And it's one of those things where she's not going to use it every day. So I would suggest, buying a cheaper external disk drive, not the one that Apple has still for sale, but something that is simply an add-on. Another friend, same day, different conversation, is also a fan of optical disc, but for her, it was more so for computer games. And her laptop that she currently owns, and she's had it for a while, does have an optical disc drive. I think it's a Blu-ray drive, actually. And the game that she used to play all the time was The Sims. And she, as most of us were accustomed to putting the disk into the computer, allowing it to install, so forth and so forth. And that's it. That's the way that software was given to us. But as time has progressed, the internet's gotten faster, gotten better, speeds have gotten faster. We're able to download massive amounts of data to install stuff, but also, more importantly, I'd say, is to update stuff. So I remember when I had my PS4 and I, would go buy used games from GameStop. And yeah, you'd put the disc in the console and it'd say, oh, okay, great. Thanks for putting the disc in, but we need to download 40 gigs worth of data. And I'm like, what? Like, what's the point of even having this disc if I still need to download that much data? So the internet has allowed these companies to better update their stuff so that the image you get on the disc just isn't a stagnant thing. It's more of it's a living thing. It grows as the developers come out with more things for whatever it is that you have. It gets better. So having a disk drive in 2022 isn't really a necessity. They still sell them, so if you want one, you can get one. But for me, in my mind, when it comes to this laptop and even their situation, just okay, how frequently are you going to use that one particular thing that you're worried about? So for me, the two things that I was worried about: how often am I going to use that Ethernet port when there's an alternative available? When Wi-Fi is available, how often am I going to use that Ethernet port? And the answer is not often. Same thing with the smart card reader. Yes, I have been working from home, but even if I work from home every day, one, how often am I moving around to the point where I need to carry my laptop with me and having a USB smart card reader hanging from it is an issue? And of those days, how many hours am I using the laptop not for work, doing other things where my smart card isn't even in the picture? So with me thinking that way, I say, okay, well, yes, I know that these ports are here. I know that I spent some time and some money installing the smart card reader. But I also know that this thing, it's hefty. It's not the prettiest thing to look at. And in fact, here is my X1 Carbon. Ooh, which one is this one? Oh, sorry, that was the wrong one. Here's my X1 Carbon 6th generation, and I'll hold it up sideways just so you can get a feel of how much thinner it is. So this X1 Carbon 6th generation is, I'd say, significantly thinner. You remove that Ethernet port, you're going to save some space. And of course, just since it's their more premium product, they're going to do whatever they can to distinguish the two products. Now, one thing I will say, and this is now going towards Lenovo and a lot of other companies, is, well, there's something that I want, but you won't let me have it. And you might say, well, what do you mean? I mean, you can get the T14, I think there's a T15, the X1 Carbons, the X13s, the T14S. There's a whole IdeaPad line, a whole ThinkBook line. You got the Legion. You have a lot of options. But what do you actually want? And I don't want this. I did want it. I will say that. I did want it. And of course, as a result of it just being hefty and thicker and me not enjoying the typing experience, I said, you know what? I can do without it. But what I do want is this. This 6th generation laptop is something that I even have listed on eBay right now. And nobody's bid on it. And I'm not expecting, well, nobody submitted an offer. I have it for buy it now or best offer. But the more that I've used it, the more that I think about it, the more I realize I like this machine. But even though I just went on my own little rant about the fact that I could simply just plug one of these in to any laptop and just have my smart card hanging off the side, not a problem. If I needed an Ethernet port, I have this dongle, which I do value this a lot. What I want is this machine with the option to install a smart card reader. And they just don't make that. They do not allow you to configure the X1 Carbon to have an internal smart card reader. And I'm sure some will say, well, it's so thin, there's not enough room. And looking at the space right here, I can't argue with you that there is not a lot of room here for a smart card reader. But the people who do the engineering of these things are extremely smart. Extremely smart. Some of them are probably geniuses. And whatever millimeter or fraction of a millimeter that might be required to allow for the installation of a smart card reader, they could figure it out. So as a consumer, I'm stuck with a choice. I can have your top tier product and then have to use a USB smart card reader. And then for some reason, if I'm in an area where I need an Ethernet port as opposed to just using Wi-Fi, then I also have to use that. Or I could buy your less premium product, which is the T14 or the T14S, which is a little thinner than the T14, which even though that T14S is thinner than the T14, it does not have an Ethernet port, but it does give you the option to configure it with a smart card reader. If I had one here, I'd be able to hold them up with this X1 Carbon to see exactly how much thicker that particular model is. But it is possible to have something around this size and configure it with a smart card reader, an internal one, but Lenovo is just simply not allowing you to do it. I mistakenly picked this one up earlier. This is also an X1 Carbon, but this is the 9th generation. So I'm fairly confident that either this machine or a Dell that I have, not Adele, but Adele, not the artist, you know what I mean, is going to be the machine that becomes my primary laptop. But, you know, even holding these up next to each other, I feel like if they wanted to, they could find a way to put a smart card reader here. It might not be the prettiest, you know, I'm not going to say that it is. But again, if you drop this taper a little bit later or make it a little less aggressive, even though it's not that aggressive at all, they can figure out a way to install it or to have it there for installation if necessary. Because at the end of the day, even though, yes, this is their premium business class laptop, it is still a business laptop. And there are people who need smart cards in order to work. So I don't know why they don't allow you to do it. But what I will say is that it's making me want to choose one of these machines and just have the smart card reader and then the USB-C to Ethernet port, if necessary, as opposed to that T14. Because that thing is clunky. It really is. And yeah, as time has progressed, we've been afforded the opportunities to have thinner and thinner products. And if I don't need the things that I thought I needed when I bought that machine, because yes, USB-C or USB in general allows for that universal connectivity, then yeah, no reason to buy a machine that has a dedicated port. Now, the last thing that I will do, because I did mention that there might be another machine that is going to possibly become my main laptop. Here's the X1 Carbon, 9th generation. This, a smaller machine, is the Dell Latitude 7320. Okay, this is another machine that I am considering becoming my main working device, you know, personal and work. But there are two things, and I probably could bring this up in a different video, but there are two things, and in fact, I will. I'm going to stop that right here, and I'm going to make a separate video about this one. But as I mentioned before, the ThinkPad T14 Gen 2, it's a good machine. It has that AMD processor or APU in it. And yeah, it's a good machine. It's just not what I want right now. If I sell it and get rid of it, am I going to regret it? Probably not. But I just want the option to be able to configure this machine with the same things that come in that T14. Mainly just a smart card reader, not the Ethernet port. But I don't know why it's not available, as I mentioned before. And that's it. So instead of me droning on, I'm going to cut this one short. I'll probably hit stop and then hit play again to start talking about this little guy. So I'll catch you in the next one.